What's up everyone, Brian Schmidt here from Guardians of the Geckos, and if you didn't know this already, I hope you do if you have a significant other. Today is Valentine's Day, and in the spirit of Saint Valentine himself, we will be talking about breeding. But more specifically, we'll be discussing 5 tips to help you along your journey to be a successful gecko breeder. So, let's roll the intro.
No limits, no ceiling, no ground, no pressure gonna hold me down, no wall that I can't break through, and no limits to what I can do.
First things first. For those of you that have already subscribed to the channel, thank you all, and for everyone that's also left comments in the previous videos, thank you for that as well, whether it is just overall positive comments on what we're doing right, or suggestions on how we can improve and move this channel forward. Because that's what I really want to do with each of these videos, is little by little improve each one better than the last, whether it's better quality, whether it's better content. That's my goal for this channel, so keep them coming. So originally, I was gonna do a whole separate video for today, and the reason I changed it up was, I've been thinking a lot lately. I have this information in my head that I need to get out and give to you guys, and it kind of stems from a week ago where I was with a couple of buddies that are getting a little more into Crested Gecko breeding, and I was just discussing with them different tips I had that maybe can help them along their journey. And yesterday I was thinking, hey, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, so why not make a video on it? And that's why we're here now. And I gotta say, the majority of the geckos I've sold over the years, of course, some geckos go to people that just want them as pets, just a single gecko. That's probably about 40%. Maybe another 20% of the geckos is going towards other established breeders. But then probably a good 30%, did that total 100? Whatever, probably a good 30% of the geckos that I sell are going to people that are newer into Crested Gecko breeding. Maybe they're not fully established yet, but they're on the cusp of make it or break it. And what I mean by that is I've sold geckos to a lot of people in the past that some have become very successful at it and are breeders now. They do some of the reptile shows or they sell them on Morph Market. They got a website, they're doing great. Other people, they may get really into it. They may be motivated at first, but somewhere along the way, maybe they didn't have the right motivation or they weren't in it for the right reasons, but they fell off the train and they end up contacting me later, asking me to basically wholesale buy those animals back, or I see them liquidating their collection of geckos to someone else I know, and I'm like, hey, I sold them geckos, and I remember they were really wanting to get into breeding. So that's kind of what inspired me to do this video. So the information we're gonna discuss, I hope it's gonna help you all out, even if it's just a little bit, just a smidge. And of course, everything I'm gonna say is of course optional. It's just information that's helped me out along the way to be successful on my own. So I hope you guys also get something out of this video, whether you're just into breeding Crested Geckos or you're breeding all the New Caledonian geckos. So let's go ahead and get into tip number 1. Breed what you're passionate about. And what I mean by that is it doesn't have to be the most popular morph that's out there right now. It doesn't have to be the most popular gecko species right now. What are you passionate about? Is it your favorite gecko or favorite reptile since you were a little kid and you've always wanted to get into them? Does it excite you? Are you looking forward to what's gonna be hatching out of that egg? Do you have that fire, that passion that's gonna drive you day by day to stay in the industry, to keep moving forward? So you don't have to work with the most popular morph that's out there right now to make you successful. Think differently than what everyone else is doing. Of course, it's super important to understand what the trends are in the industry. Where's the industry going? Where's it gonna be in 1 year out, 5 years out, 10 years out? And kind of gauge off of that. But at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about what you're producing, then honestly, you shouldn't be a gecko breeder in the first place. You know, the first thing I do when I get out of bed, I don't brush my teeth right away like I should, but it's because I'm so excited. I go directly into the gecko room, I find the egg laying bin, and I look to see what hatched out overnight because I'm excited to see what I produced. I'm excited to see what I created. And if you can find and harness that same exact passion with what you're producing, you know, breed what you're passionate about, then I guarantee you'll be successful. Logan, what's tip number 2? All right, cool. I'll let him know. Tip number 2 is organization and tracking. Now with organization and tracking, think about this situation for a minute. You're interested in purchasing a gecko, but you have 2 different options. And let's say, just for the circumstance, the geckos are absolutely identical in every way. They are literally twin geckos. One is from one breeder, one's from another breeder. Now, breeder number 1 has all of the information that goes along with that gecko. It has its hatch date, it has its genetic lineage. They may have pictures of who the parents were of that gecko, so you may be able to see a little bit into its genetic history. It comes from a reputable breeder, that line of geckos. Now, gecko number 2, like I said, same identical gecko in every way, weight, size, morph, pattern, everything. However, this gecko has no information on it whatsoever. You're just purchasing straight up the gecko. And the 2 geckos are priced identical, you know, not even a penny difference. So, easy answer, are you gonna purchase gecko number 1 or gecko number 2? Obviously, it's gonna be gecko number 1. So with that situation, you can immediately see the value and importance of tracking and staying organized over time. So the first thing we do is, if we have a breeding female, we will track over time her information during the season. We'll write down and notate each date that she laid a set of eggs. We'll also notate how healthy were the eggs. Were the eggs infertile? Were the eggs super healthy, pearly white? And tracking that information, especially over time, we'll know if we need to maybe change up her diet a little bit, maybe add a little bit more calcium or insects to her diet, or maybe we need to switch out the male. Maybe he's just not interested in her and she keeps producing just infertile eggs over time. Maybe swapping with a different male will help initiate getting fertile eggs. So part 2 is going to be tracking the information of the eggs themselves. The date the eggs were laid, and which female laid the eggs, if you're able to know which female laid the eggs. Obviously, if you just have a single male and a single female, you know. However, it does get a little bit difficult with breeding groups, especially if you have 2, 3, or even 4 females with 1 male. That's where tracking the date of the eggs on each of the females' tags comes in handy, because with mathematics and timing, you may be able to just automatically know which female laid the eggs. But if not, you can just put what group those eggs came from, or at least the male that those eggs came from. Skip forward 70 to 100 days if we're breeding crested geckos, and the eggs are gonna hatch out. Now, what we do and helps us with continuing the tracking progress is we'll take a single gecko that's hatched out of the egg and it goes into its own Crested Gecko hatchling bin. We'll now transfer the information from the eggling bin onto the hatchling bin. We'll still keep the laid date tracked, as well as now we'll add the hatch date of that gecko, as well as the parents of that gecko, what group that gecko came from. And that gecko will be housed individually over time until we sell that gecko to you. So you can clearly see how tracking the information and staying organized over that period of time, it does take a little extra work, but it does add value and makes you just a little bit more of a reputable breeder. Number 3, step up your social media game. That's right, we're in an amazing age right now of content creation. Between Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, that's what we use, but there's even ones beyond that. Of course, there's Snapchat, TikTok is super popular. I haven't gotten into that yet, a little wary, but the coolest thing about social media is it's completely free to do. The easiest right off the bat is Facebook and Instagram. I'll say that we got popular at first more so on Instagram. I mean, we're still not huge. I think we're 5,000 something followers, but you know, compared to the average breeder, I feel like that's a good, decent number of people interested in the content I'm producing, I'm putting out there. Think about this, as soon as I publish a photo, that is absolutely free marketing. It's gonna be published to 5,000 plus people on Instagram that are following me. That's free advertising. Think back 20 years ago, you didn't have that option. You had to buy a newspaper ad or a TV commercial, radio, airwaves. So it's an amazing time we're living in right now. I definitely recommend everyone to take full advantage of that. Obviously, a little more difficult one to do is YouTube, but that's what you're watching us on right now. And yeah, it takes a little more effort to kind of learn the video editing aspect of everything, but the most amazing thing nowadays is it's easier than ever because every single person has this right here. And the way phones are these days is it makes it so easy to record videos, and YouTube allows you to upload a video directly from your phone. So you don't need any of the fancy camera equipment. You don't need to be a professional video editor. Obviously, we put a little extra effort into making quality videos, but you don't even need to do that. Just shoot the video and upload it and continue to improve maybe over time. I really truly recommend trying out at least one of the social media platforms at first, maybe eventually move on to 2, 3, then eventually all the social media platforms. But yeah, there's really no excuse. It's absolutely free to do, and it just showcases what you're creating, what you're producing, your skill level as a breeder, and it markets your brand to the entire world. Next tip is don't get into being a gecko breeder or a reptile breeder just solely for the money. Now, I guarantee you, if that is your reason for being a breeder, you will fall off that train really quickly. I talked earlier about being passionate, having that fire for what you're producing, and that stays true so well. It will drive you forward and to continue on, even on days where you're discouraged a little bit. But yeah, I can speak on personal experience, especially the first several years. You know, you're investing way more money into this than you're gonna be getting back for a long time. Guess what? This is now like 6, 7 years for me being actually a official breeder and not just owning reptiles. And I still have a full-time job outside of this. So literally I'm working 7 days a week between my full-time job. I get off of that, then I work essentially all night long with my geckos, providing care for them, uploading to social media, and then of course doing shows on the weekends or updating the website on the weekends. So obviously you don't, even at the level I'm at right now, which, you know, like I said, I'm not a huge name breeder yet, but at the level I'm at, I'm not making, you know, tons of money where I can quit my full-time job yet. I would love to get to that level, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And that's why, like I said, in tip number, what are we, 4 now? 4, if you're in this just solely to make money, you are gonna fail miserably and everyone's gonna make fun of you. So that brings us to tip number 5. Now, there's a Arnold Schwarzenegger quote. Actually, there's a list from Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think it's his tips for success, something like that. Obviously very similar to this video. And one of the main ones on there that I wanted to include in this video is ignore the naysayers. And that is so important, especially in this world, in this online community that we have nowadays. Whether it's people just spreading negativity in the YouTube comments, in the Instagram, Facebook comments. At the end of the day, those people are just jealous, and the only thing they know how to do is to spread negativity. They're jealous of you and what you're doing. They might be calling you out saying, oh, it's stupid being a gecko breeder. You don't know what you're doing. That's for kids. You know, whatever the reason, just ignore those people. And that reminds me of another quote from that movie, The Interview, with like James Franco. I think it's, just remember this line. They're just peanut butter and jealous. They hate us cause they ain't us.
They hate us cause they
ain't us. Hate us because of anus.
And I love if you find someone that's just that toxic, you know, just spreading negative comments, just think that in your head and it turns it into a comical situation. And if anything, that stuff just motivates me to push forward, to keep moving forward. And especially I wanted to add in too, like one of the more toxic things too is like those Facebook reptile specific groups or gecko specific groups you see. I'll see occasionally someone on there bashing someone else on, oh, you're not providing, you know, the perfect care for your animals. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And I just wanted to say real quick is, you know, as long as you're providing the general care guidelines, you're staying within those guidelines. And like I said, guidelines, the recommendations for how to take care of your reptile, then you can experiment with tweaking certain things within those guidelines to try something that works for you that may not work for someone else. And that's super important. And I recommend trying stuff that's a little bit different that may have never been done before. Because how can we move forward as a reptile community if we're always doing the same thing all the time? How can we improve and move on to that next step? Maybe we'll find a better way to care for these animals. So it's important to experiment. Always stay within the care guidelines, but ignore those people that are gonna be spitting just information about, oh, you should do it this way, not that way. That's all those people know how to do. So stay within the guidelines, do it for you and not for anyone else. And that's all you need to remember. So before we wrap up the video, I just wanted to leave this with you guys real quick. This is a book by Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL trainer. So it's pretty badass. And the book's called Discipline Equals Freedom, Field Manual. I definitely recommend for anyone that's interested in being successful in their lives to get this book. It's super awesome. Each page is just like little excerpts on how to go through your day and be better. So yeah, I just wanted to read this little quote in here that kind of, I believe, ties this video together, especially for you guys wanting to further yourself, especially in the gecko breeding or reptile breeding world. And it really ties into the last tip number 5. The only person you can control is you. So focus on making yourself who you want to be. Faster, stronger, smarter, more humble, less ego. Discipline your body, free your mind, get up early and go. Get after it and you will become the person you want to be. And you become that person through one small decision at a time. So, with that, that's the end of the video. I hope all of you just got a small piece out of this to help kind of drive you to the next step into the direction you're going. So, anyways, like always, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click that like button, really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Comment below. It's always difficult for me to come up with ideas for future videos. But yeah, I want to see what you guys are interested in hearing. So anyways, thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.